and Sarah for doing the bar, and for Nathan making all of the beautiful photos at level, because it was at the last second a total disaster, but it came together. Very big thank you to Mick Henry, to Blackman Bay Oysters, and to Stone and Wood Brewery for providing drinks and oysters tonight. Thank you so much. So these are portraits that I shot in France at the start of the Golden Globe race, which started on the 1st of July. I had an opportunity about maybe 20 minutes with each sailor as they were stressfully preparing to start the race. It was an incredibly intense period for them, and I think that you can very much see the stress in their faces from these images. So you have to imagine that I'm in France and I have my camera and I go down to each of their boats and I grab them. I'm like, Kevin, all right, we got to go up and have the portrait. And Kevin's, I'm busy putting the wind vane on right now. And he'd be like, no, we got to do this. And I had a makeshift studio in the office with sort of a curtain, a black curtain, which is what I used to shoot them. And here we are. Tonight is the first night of showing these images, and as some of you may or may not know, the skippers currently, or the ones remaining, are currently en route or have passed Tasmania. So Jean-Luc is already past New Zealand, and Mark Slats is right now just off the west coast of Tasmania, so he'll be sailing past tomorrow, and the rest of the fleet are still in the Southern Ocean. So Don is here, he's the race founder, and he's going to give a quick overview of the race, and then go around and give a quick little talk about each of the skippers. I think that's
10 seconds.
10 seconds. Times 18.
Yeah. You got to say something too.
Anyway, I'll say something. Yeah, I think that's it. So yeah, thank you so much for coming. We really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thanks, Nick. Well, the big deal for Jane and I to come here today is it's the first time we've seen these portraits as well. And as Nick said, it takes you right back to Les Sables alone when we started. I can detect certain things there, but the thing that impresses me, they all look pretty slick. They've got smooth skin, they've got longer hair, they're reasonably relaxed as much as they're stressed, because I'm quite looking forward to when the race is finished, and those that are left taking portraits again. Hopefully Nick can be there to take those portraits. And the idea is we'll have a before and after look, and I've got to tell you, they're going to be completely different. We're already seeing it in Jean-Luc when he's here, and in Lanzarote even after 2 weeks. So the contrast is going to be quite something. I think all of you know what the GGR is and how different it is in the context of a solo round-the-world yacht race. Jesse Martin's here behind the camera. He's done it in a little boat. Jessica Watson's done it in a little boat. John Sanders has done little boats. Nick's done it in little boats. It's completely different. And to bring it all together to recreate and celebrate the first Golden Globe race was kind of an interesting story. I did it for me because I wanted to race in it. It got so big so quick I couldn't do it. I had to manage it, right? And that's our own adventure right now, just making it all happen. But to capture it in images like this is really part of that whole thing of going back to a different era, a different time and place. And the photography that Nick's done is really relevant to trying to sort of, capture that moment in time as well. So it's exciting for us to see this collection. There's so many things about the GGR that is, it's created through passion of people. And it was the idea of doing portraits was an idea we discussed and talking to Nick and so on. And sure, Nick wore a few hats when he was over there. His main role was our digital director, making sure that the website was working and Facebook was sort of happening. But then every time he had another moment, off to do a photo shoot or do some live stuff with Christoph, who's also here. Christoph's our cameraman. He's our frontline photographer, plus our daily update on Facebook. He writes all the updates. And because we can't have a French and English employee because we didn't get a sponsor and we're such a small team, it's a funny story that we decided to write all the daily updates in French because Google Translate to English works. But if you write in English and use Google Translate to French, it doesn't work. So Christophe does all those, and he does some video clips as well. Anyway, it's quite fun to be here in Hobart. Why are we here? Because when Bernard Batessier sailed around in 1968, he's actually stopped off at the bottom of research, found a Tassie fisherman, passed over his films and letters and everything, and said take it up to the yacht club, the Royal Yacht Club of Tasmania, and then it got back to Europe. And I think most of you probably know the story of the GPR, but it was kind of neat because I like Tassie and Hobart, as you know, and here we are. But crikey, Jean-Luc went through a week or so ago, and Mark Sinclair is like 4,000 miles, or 2,500 miles that way towards Cape Town. The fleet's now stretched over nearly 6,000 miles, and that's also an indication of how different this adventure is, so quite something. You can follow it on Facebook, you can follow it on the website, you can follow it on Twitter and Instagram, all that sort of stuff, so keep up with it. It's only halfway through. In fact, we're only really not even all of them are halfway through yet. It's a long way to go. There's been a lot of interesting events on the way. We've really only had one rescue, but we've had 3 dismastings, and so far everyone's still having fun. So I think that's probably enough to go through that. We're going to do the walk around of the boats. Yeah. I mean, not the boats, the people. Yeah. And then if anyone's got any questions just at the end, you can either grab us after. You know, we're happy to meet everyone. Sorry I haven't got to see everyone, but hopefully I'll get to say to everyone on the way through. So which end will we start from?
Let's just start here.
Start here. Yeah. Okay. Istvan, he actually sailed with me around Cape Horn in the 1990 BOC Challenge. He was already in a 34-foot yacht in 1990 using a sextant, no GPS going around. He's got an interesting story. And now he's having all sorts of trouble on his boat. But a real stayer, really interesting guy. Yeah. Yeah.
Istvan, I sailed across the Atlantic and the Pacific. We had the same wind vane steering system. And Istvan had a lot of trouble with that system, and it was interesting hearing all of the stories from that, but he seems to have resolved them.
He's always laughing and smiling, eh? Even if everything's gone wrong, he took a big wave into the boat and flooded the entire boat. So all his electronics are gone, everything's breaking and not working, but he's still going.
Francesco,
you.
Francesco was late. He didn't actually start on the official start date, unfortunately. He's Italian, so he lives and works on a different type of clock. So I think, how many weeks was he late?
Yes, well, he had to start within 3 weeks, or he wouldn't have even made the cruiser.
So Don had to make a whole new class just for Francesco to sail in, and so he eventually just departed 3 weeks later, but soon, not long after, had to retire anyway.
Yeah. Typically Italian guy, really beautiful guy, great nature, got a huge following in Italy, and we really like him. And unfortunately he couldn't carry on, but a real character. Who's that?
That is Kevin, the Australian.
Looks a bit like Obama. Just in my angle. No?
I think that's your angle.
Yeah.
He's been at summit at Everest like 3 times.
Yeah, 3 times.
And he got to the Canary Islands and decided solo sailing was not for him. So he retired.
Yeah, it's a whole story in itself. SAS, and he actually bought my boat. I've had a boat ready to go for the GGR. When I pulled out, he bought it, and I think he just realised he's not an ocean guy. He's a mountain guy, and didn't want to talk about it when it finished. And he's on his way. And great guy, good fun. He's Igor. He's one of my heroes. Speaks very little English, but he gets by. And he took 600 packets of cigarettes with him on the race. And he gets a bit of that as well. And he did a fantastic job down the Atlantic. He was right up there. In fact, at the start, I'm telling you honestly, I thought he had his engine running. He was second in place at the start. He can really sail. He understands sail shape. But since then, everything's gone wrong. Forestay broken, all sorts of dramas with the boat. There's serious challenges, and he's at the back end of the fleet now, sailing very slow. And I think he'll be happy to get here, and then we'll assess what goes on. I'll be happy when he gets here. He's got problems.
Yeah.
Has he run out of cigarettes yet?
Oh, not yet.
He also is known, so all of the skippers can send updates, so they can't receive information, but they can send information. All of the skippers send insights into how their trip is going, and Igor only ever reports Esmeralda, the name of his boat, okay.
So it's quite famous. You can get a t-shirt now, Esmeralda OK. Become a catchphrase. Gregor's story is amazing. When he first signed on to be part of this about 3 years ago, he came in like an older school kid, you know. He had to stand up and give a presentation to all the other entrants. And I'll never forget it. He stood there stuttering, stammering, reading it off a bit of paper with handwritten notes on it. And you just sort of thought, wow, I admire this guy, but I'm not sure whether he'll get there. Bugger me, he did it big time. You know, he kept persevering, got a boat, got things happening, and then in the end he got a good sponsor. And unfortunately he got wiped out in the storm that took out Tommy as well. Very vicious storm, whole big story for later. It's on Facebook, the website.
The other thing, his boat is currently still floating at sea, and we can still see it on the tracker.
Yeah.
And I remember, Don, was it whiskey? Is it a barrel of whiskey?
Yeah, yeah.
He has a barrel of whiskey that's on there.
Yeah, I forgot
I
about
reckon that would be worth quite a money.
Yeah, we get to find out whether you got our teddy bear off yet, but anyway. But yeah, great guy. Jean-Luc Vandenheed. I've been close friends with Jean-Luc since '86. Got up to all sorts of crazy things. Some may remember that I had a little ship called Sir Hubert Wilkins, sponsored by Dick Smith Foods. One of his voyages on Adrian, an 80-footer around the world solo, he lost his mast south of here in Antarctica. We were down there on the ship, brought the ship back, and we ended up towing him in the last 30 miles or so. And he redid his mast here with a steel mast and sailed it back to America, Europe rather, France. Amazing guy. That's all you can say about him. You know, I just wrote a piece in my thoughts column on the website why he is so good at what he does. He is so far in front, it's ridiculous, and he's 73. He's done, this is his 6th solo circumnavigation. Mark, he's on his way. He's a brute. He's just a giant. He's like this tall, muscles in his fingers, you know, and he's just an amazing guy.
So he's just off the west coast of Tassie now, and there was a moment in Les Sables where all of the skippers were introduced to the town, and as Mark walked up on the stage, literally the entire crowd just went, oh.
Yeah,
just so big.
He's a big guy.
He's like 3 men.
Like 2 months before a couple of months before the start of the race, he rowed across the Atlantic in the Talisker Atlantic Row Challenge and just blitzed the world record like you wouldn't believe. I mean, just, you know, one of his strokes was worth 1.5 of the others. He's a big guy. Philippe Péchet, he'd done 300,000 miles sailing around the world. One of the fastest guys on the water, did all the big Grand Prix multi-hulls, you know, Jules Verne and all that sort of stuff. And unfortunately, he made a bad choice of gear and didn't get past Cape Town. But great guy, very fast.
Yeah, super fast, super well prepared, and just unlucky.
Lucked out, yeah, lucked out. And Susie's the only woman in the race. Susie Goodall, England, she's the youngest entrant now, still sailing. You know, I just look at her. She's good not because she's a woman sailing, she's good because she's a good sailor. Simple as that. You know, I've got a lot of admiration for Susie. She's hell of a character, and she's been doing it tough, but she's sort of picked up again. She just went through a huge storm 48 hours ago, and I feel a bit of that adrenaline click has given her a new lease of life, I reckon.
Susie really didn't really like having to do stuff, in the sense that she didn't like publicity. So even having to take her portrait, she was kind of reticent to do that. She wasn't really into it. But everyone wanted to always talk to Susie. She was always kind of like, she just wanted to be left alone and to work on her project. So that's interesting.
Yeah, it was because it was at the end, this was at the start, and all the media were all over her, and she was just getting tired. Quickly round the corner.
Yeah.
Okay, everyone else stay there, you can look down on us. Ari. This is spelled R-A-A-R-E, as in R, but it's Ari. He's an amazing sailor, done lots of different boats, Atlantics, multi-hulls, monohulls. In this one he had one of the better prepared boats. He's a real seaman, really strong rig, and he lost his rig in a rollover in about 35 knots in 3.5 metre seas. It was unbelievable. We were all shocked when he lost it, but he sailed home himself. Incredible guy, and he's coming back in 22.
He's a proper seaman, and I felt that he was familiar for some reason, and I figured out that he actually looks like Hemingway.
Right.
Yeah.
Uku's one of the most laid-back guys you can ever imagine. He's one of Estonia's top sailors, and he literally bought a boat that was entered and they didn't go. That was Lionel's boat. So it was already prepared, and he got Lionel to do some work on it, and literally he just got other people to do everything and turned up a few days before the start of the race, bought some food, put it on, he'd sailed it enough and he just left, and he's still going and doing really well. He's now running third in the race, and he's such a lovely guy. And Aida, who's here, where's Aida? Over here is Uku's manager. Right? Aida is the wife of Yannick, who is also our big supporter with the agglomeration in France. So, but yeah, lovely guy.
Super easy to photograph. He was just like, yeah, whenever we'll take the photograph.
Super laid back. But you can be sure when he gets here, he'll be very emotional because he's a really warm guy and he's craving people. And he didn't want to leave when he had a similar film drop in
he forgot his tea and coffee.
Yeah, exactly.
He had no tea and coffee for 9 months.
yeah. Crikey's now going to think.
Antoine.
Yeah, after you.
Antoine Cousseau is French, and he had a really amazing book collection on board.
And a lot of cassettes. Yeah, he was really into it. And I don't know what happened with him, but he just... Yeah, he was. He admits and concedes the race wasn't for him, and he wasn't happy with the way he prepared the boat. So he retired into Lanzarote because he needed a break. That was it, and then he kept going, but he didn't. He got injured then and didn't make it past, and decided to go into Rio. Kind of a sad story, but he had a try. Yeah. Oh boy, this is Captain Coconut, okay, if you're following the race. Mark Sinclair has got a bright orange boat called Coconut, it's a Lalo 34, one of the lower budget boats. He's a retired naval commander who was Australia's top hydrographer, for years and years, great navigator. Absolutely insanely Australian crazy, right? But he was born in England, I think. Real character, a lot of fun, but he's incredibly slow. He's just enjoying the cruise. He took 105 days or something to get the same position that Jean-Luc took 63, right? And he's stuck in weather and all that sort of stuff now. And he said he wanted to arrive in France for the prize giving, but right now, boat for boat, day for day, Suhaili with Robin Knox-Johnson just passed him. Suhaili's now about 4 days in front of him, right? And that's Suhaili's same time.
I mean, he also said that he had no interest in winning and he was just doing it for the experience.
Yeah,
he also wanted to sail close to some of the land so that he could just see it.
Enjoy it.
And enjoy it. So
He does that for sure. Yeah, strange part is he might come back in 22. If he finishes his
Still going.
Tommy, what do you say about Tommy? He's a classic.
Tommy is incredible, and
Yeah.
the story of him and him building the Suhaili replica in India, where they didn't know how to build boats, where they had to import everything. If he wanted a turnbuckle in stainless, he had to bring it in from Holland, and the fact that he was able to build a boat in India and they didn't even know how to register the boat. They were like, "Oh, is it a ship?" And he was like, "No, it's like a yacht." It's incredible.
He's got the most amazing smile. Nick wouldn't let anyone smile on these shots, but his smile is just beaming. He's such a warm, friendly guy. He was the first Indian already to do a solo non-stop circumnavigation. He'd done one before. The boat everyone thought would be slow. Even Robin Knox-Johnson thought it would be slow, but it doesn't matter, it'll look good. He takes off. He was doing so well. He was moving, he was taking on Mark Slats, and so he was going into third position, and then he got rolled over, lost a lot, injured his back, couldn't go anywhere. I was speaking to him just yesterday, and he dropped another classic line. He said about the storm, the whole pile of things there were crazy, but he said, 30 to 40 knots is really horrible, it's boring, but 55 knots, now that's value for money. He loved it. So, Tommy's recovering from a major back surgery and really going for it, so, yeah. Oops, that's not our phone.
No.
Okay, we live with 4 phones, by the way, because there's some of our entrants now, in fact, I should have mentioned. Istvan's getting clobbered as we're standing here. Istvan is in 55 knots, big seas, he's hove to, his wind vane's not working, and he's not having a good time. So we live with 4 phones. One's a hotline, one's an emergency number, and so on, as they ring us if anything happens. But anyway, okay, Tapio. Well, I'll start off.
Yeah,
Tapio's quite a prominent sailor in Finland. No, Finland? Is Finland? James, Finland, yeah. And he's been Commodore of big yacht clubs and everything, but he decided to get a Gear 36, a particular boat that potentially on paper was very fast. It was like taking the registration plate off it if you're restoring a plane and building a brand new plane and putting it back. He completely rebuilt the boat. It got a bit behind time. Everything's been going wrong with the boat since he started, but he's not going to stop. He's going to go whatever. He's down to one form of power generation, a water generator, and if he loses that, he's already said he's going to go dark ship and keep sailing. Nothing will stop him. Amazing guy. Yeah, very humble, sort of nice guy. Yeah. Okay. Urton. Great photo. This is one of my favourite photos.
Is it?
I'm not sure why, but it's just everything about it seems symmetrical.
Yeah.
It's bloody, you know.
Airtown was, every time you walk past his boat, he would invite you for lunch.
Oh yeah, omelets. Omelets. He was big on omelets.
Yeah, he was a really lovely guy, and he had all of these messages written inside his boat. And every time I went on there, he was studying navigation. And really lovely guy. He finished after 5 days because he missed his family.
Yeah, he'd done all his preparation and done all the qualifying, had the boat prepared and all that stuff. But when you're doing that, you don't actually take off for real when you know everything's going to be shut down. And he lasted 5 days and retired, and we were all, what? You know. But then you got to understand it was just a reflection on who he is and his nature. He's very much a warm people person, and he decided, no, can't do it. You know, so he pulled out. Nabil was a high-flying, high-pressure investment banker type guy in America. Had a passion and dream to represent Palestine in the race, and he'd done a reasonable amount of sailing. Lots of challenges to get to the start, do all the qualifiers, all that sort of thing. I'd have to say he's a bit of a junior sailor, but he ticked all the boxes, got going, and got to the film drop. And after that, took off, his wind vane completely failed and it all fell apart. He had one bad night, hand steering, seasick, and he just said, this is it, this is horrible, I'm out of here. It's all over. That's it. Lloyd,
He's my favourite.
Yeah.
He's in a Nicholson 32 on a super low budget campaign. His boat is full of some really cool books as well, and lots of wine. And when I went down below to shoot his other portrait, his boat is just, I don't know how to describe it, but
a mess.
Just a mess. But just an amazing guy, and
Where's he from?
He's French, and just a proper sailor. And he'd already lost a boat before. I think 2 boats actually.
Yeah.
He lost 2 boats, and his dream was to do a circumnavigation.
Yeah, he is. He's a classic guy. I like him simply because he doesn't polish his hull. He bought the boat second hand. It was quite old, and he's had it for a couple of years preparing it. He's never once polished the hull. He just leaves it all chalky, and he just focuses on what he needs to do. And he's extremely low budget. He's a true Corinthian, and he's had some big scares, you know, but he kept going in terms of getting to the start line, and he's just doing it consistent. But he too, in another 12 hours, will meet up with about 50 to, it'll be gusting 60 knots, probably 6 metre seas. So we just send him a message to get north as fast as you can, try and get away from him. But yeah, I like him a lot. You know, he's very much in the spirit of the GTR. So that's about it.
How old is he?
Lloyd.
60 something.
60 something. Yeah, he's a young fella. Anyway, but yeah, thanks Nick, we're really happy to have all these portraits. It's an amazing record of people, and if you're around, you'll see 7 or more, 8 of them still coming through. So, and we'll look forward to displaying all these portraits in Les Sables later on. It'll be good. Thanks for coming, everyone. Any particular questions? Probably it. Yep, cool. Okay, thanks, enjoy. Thanks.
Have we got the entrance for 22 yet?
Sorry.
Update on that's right.
Mark will be turning up at about 1 o'clock tomorrow afternoon. Just follow basically. I saw.